Welcome to the Channel Surfers. I'm John McCabe, your co-host, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host and good friend Jeff Lennon. How you doing, Jeff?
At and always joined.
Tongue-tied and twisted.
It's all right, man. It's been one of those weeks, one of those months, one of those years. So,
Jeff, today's episode, we want to share some lessons, or lessons from a 5-decade career global channel executive, who has been in enterprise IT and giants like, SaaS disruptors and tech companies, cybersecurity companies, and provide our listeners with an actionable idea on how to lead with partners, build scalable ecosystems, and evolve in a rapidly changing channel world, which, hey, that's the purpose of this podcast. That's what we do, right? The guest we have today is really special. Researching his background, he's got a really interesting background. He's worked for companies like HP, Commvault, Darktrace, and his most recent position is with head of America Partners for SmartSheet. Not SmartSheets, SmartSheet, everybody.
Singular.
And he's also an author of a phenomenal book called Simple But Hard. So, Jeff, let's welcome our guest, Scott Strubel. How you doing, Scott?
Hey, Scott.
John, Jeff, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
We're really happy to have you. Scott, why don't you give our audience a little bit of your background just so they understand who you are and what you're doing?
I'd be glad to. I've probably always had an affinity for what partners can do to impact vendors' revenues because I began my career in technology in the channel. In 1979, when VisiCalc came out on Apple IIs, I would run around in my local town selling to every SMB client I could, workflow management and financial management, but I was building it on VisiCalc. So now I just dated myself.
That's okay.
Damn.
That's all right.
Damn. John, I should have grabbed the other my other Hawaiian shirt. So I actually have a Hawaiian shirt, Scott, from 1984. So so there's that.
Yeah. So go ahead, Scott. You were saying you were.
Yeah. So I started in the channel. I put myself through college by co-oping every other semester at Hewlett Packard, and that led me to 27 years of work at HP. I was part of the team that launched their first personal computer in 1983. Wow. And probably the most fun I ever had in my career was also at HP. I helped launch what became HP Software in 1997, and we did $24 million in our first year.
Wow.
And we were doing 3.8 billion 13 years later. So we had 150 times growth in 13 years. And then they sold it for 8.8 billion after that.
Wow.
Damn, that's fantastic.
You're probably living what all of us would love to live, just being on that ground floor and watching a company explode and grow and be a part of a, technology wave with computers. That's amazing.
Yeah, I've had a chance to build a couple of really fun software businesses. I was fortunate to build a software business for NetApp for 5 years, and we got it from 0 to 150 million and had a lot of fun doing it. And if there's one theme between both of those two examples I just gave you, I built the business from day one, committing as close to 100% as I could to the partners that were willing to go along for the ride with me.
Wow. That's really interesting. I mean, so you bring some interesting insights, right? My career, obviously, and John's, I mean, not as long and as storied as yourself, but what, and I mean that with all right, John. Here's a drink.
Yeah,
we have a drinking game because I have these 4 phrases that I constantly say. Don't tell them, John. So there's these phrases that I'll put out there, and I realize now that we've been doing the podcast that I say these things. But anyway, with all due respect, I mean, I just think it's amazing that what you've been able to do, right? So thinking where you came from and the fact that you were doing this, I mean, and how you started and even the stuff through HP. I guess my first question, I was thinking about your journey, right? Like taking that channel journey. And I know you wrote a book, which I do want to get to because I found it really, really inspirational in some areas that touch on a lot of things that John and I talk about in our previous podcast. But what are 2 or 3 of the things that kind of jump out at you, not just from the book, but just over these past 35 years or so of working in the channel that people don't get, and you have to keep reinforcing things that, so that people understand, like it's not rocket science. It really isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the way you just said that, because I've often told people, Jeff, there is a recipe for doing this correctly. So I don't know why people keep messing it up. I learned 40 years ago something that is still absolutely true today, and it's this. There's three ways a software company or a technology vendor can go to market, and two of them work really well. One of them works really poorly, and it happens to be what most vendors do. The two ways that work okay is in the early days of building up a business. If you want to identify your own customers and go to market on your own, that's fine. If you want to fully commit yourself to partners and build them into your go-to-market model and the way you financially incent your organization and the way you get professional services brought to market, that's okay too.
Yeah.
What's really bad is when you sit on the fence in the middle of those two things, and vendors will euphemistically call it opportunistic partnering, but it really means, when I need you, I'll call you. And if I don't call you, don't come around. And they get labeled as unpredictable and inconsistent, and partners move away from them. And, the second thing, Jeff and John, that I've learned the hard way and the easy way repeatedly is that partners will stay with you in tough times if you're there for them in tough times. And so the most basic rule I've always tried to remind everybody is, do you understand the fiscal year that your partners are operating in? Because it might not be the same as ours. And if we want them there in week 13 of our quarter, we'd better be there for them in week 13 of their quarter.
Yeah, so true. I think, Jeff, you and I have touched on that as well in different wording and different, context, but, it's about trust, Scott. And, I don't know if you've been able to read the book Nearbound by Jared Fuller, but you're really kind of telling us what trust is all about. Having partners stick with you in bad times, if you're with them, that's trust, right? And you're preaching to the choir here. We are all on the same page as you are about how you approach channel.
It's not that hard, John. I've often told people that since time immemorial, people buy from people that they know, that they like, and that they trust.
Yep.
And if partners don't even know who you are, they certainly can't like you, and they certainly don't trust you. So I'm often encouraging the sales reps that I work with around the Americas in my current job to get to know the people that you want to be working with you, because they're not going to trust you until they know you and like you.
That's right.
Amen.
Sure.
So when I hear you say that, and it's a term that I've seen, and I think you may even have it in one of your LinkedIn bio, but having a partner first strategy, or actually a partner first culture, right? One of the things, and listening to kind of this, right? You have to have seen it, and like you said, there's three ways to do it: two that work, one that doesn't. What are some of the traits that we need to focus on to work, to improve, to make sure that those things execute for a partner first team that you've seen? Because I know, and by the way, you're just took over, working at SmartSheet, right? So there's this whole process that I'm sure you're going through now. So it'd be kind of interesting to kind of just peel back without getting into quote unquote any proprietary things. Right. So I'm just kind of curious.
Well, here's a couple of thoughts, Jeff. First of all, I think a culture of any kind is not something that you come in and dictate. It's something that you build by what you reward, what you do, what you reinforce.
Yeah.
And I laughed when you used the term partner first culture, because it's a really important term. It can be how you build a go-to-market strategy, but it is also often a very trite term that is thrown around by companies that are the last thing that you would define it being a partner first culture. As a matter of fact, I'll leave the company nameless, but I once worked for a company that told me when I joined them, we're a partner first culture, and their channel mix, their indirect revenues divided into their total revenues, was 19%. And I said, how can you run 19% of your business through partners and call yourself a partner first culture? So here's what I believe. I believe strongly that a partner sales organization has to earn their place among the broader sales organization as being sales reps first. I've seen some partner organizations that the sales team doesn't even think they are sales reps. And they are. They're just selling through, a layer of abstraction through indirect channels. So I try to make sure that any partner organization I lead looks and acts and feels like a sales rep to their sales rep peers, that they share the same urgency in a 13-week race that we run 4 times a year. And then I think once you've earned that reputation, you start doing some teaching. I think you build a culture by teaching the broader sales organization, here are some partnering best practices. We know they work. And then once you teach them the partnering best practices, I found it works pretty well to come in behind that with rules of engagement that say, these are now rules, but they're rules because we know it works. We know how to do this.
Yeah. I think, Jeff, Scott brings up a lot of really great points, because we've all talked about this in different shows with different guests, but it's important, Scott. We both believe if leadership isn't behind channel as a way to go to market, it's never going to work, right? And I think you've experienced that. We both have experienced that. And I look for companies that are, the executives are all in on channel, because I think it's just too hard to fight your internal sales organization to convince them to do channel, sales or go through channel, and then have to sell to the channel as well to do, work with you, even though they know your reps don't want to work with them. So it's definitely, what you're saying is so true. And 19% is not, in my opinion, channel first. That's like a channel afterthought. They're just
John, that's partner first out the door. What that.
Here's one way, John,
talk.
that here's one way that you've developed a partner first culture. I once ran a $2.5 billion channel working directly for a chief revenue officer, and I asked him to put my rules of engagement out under his name, and he did. So that was big step number 1. Big step number 2 was after he put them out at the end of the next quarter, a sales rep ripped a deal back in and took it direct in direct violation because a partner had deal regged the deal. And he lost his job. And not only did he lose his job, the CRO sent a note out to the sales organization saying, Johnny broke the rules of engagement and he doesn't work here anymore. And wow, did that ever change the culture in a hurry?
Yeah, I love that.
That's awesome. I'm sorry to see Johnny lose his job, right? But Johnny was a good guy. Johnny really worked hard. And we're throwing Johnny around. It's not really. It's probably not John, right? But
it wasn't John.
It was Johnny. Here's the thing. To John's point, you need that executive sponsorship if you're going to really go out and do it, right? And if you're trying to drive this, partner first, culture, right? It's not just a strategy. It is a culture, to your point, and you got to live it and breathe it, right? And it has to permeate into the actual execution strategy that you're trying to drive.
Yeah.
And that's, you've obviously have seen it on a grander scale than myself probably, or even John, but when I think about that, trying to transform those things, when I was looking at your background, I mean, I definitely kind of bumped into you because you were at NetApp. John and I were at EMC. I saw you were at Darktrace. I was over at, FireEye and ExtraHop.
We both at Fire and ExtraHop. Yep.
Yeah. So it's, and what's interesting is what I saw. And again, this isn't a knock on any of the companies, right? But what you see is this: it's almost like a breathing. It's like they lean in and then they pull back out again, and it tells me that there's either maybe it's the lack of not to your point, but lack of leadership, right? Somebody at a higher level that's driving the channel and they're not sponsoring it anymore, or they start to get squeamish. I mean, and again, not throwing anything at any company or anything like that, but. What are some things that you've had to do to kind of push through that and do the right thing, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I have learned so much from other people, to paraphrase the late great Harry Carey. I think he once said, I've been doing this 46 years, but I think with a little more practice and experience, I'm going to get better at it. And, your credibility is really high with me, guys, from time you spent at EMC. I learned a lot. There was a time in my career when HP was supplying its storage to the market through EMC. So I would go on all my sales calls with the EMC rep, and I would listen in utter fascination at how damn good they were at what they did. And I learned a lot from them. I also was a bit amused that I would show up. HP gave us all Ford Tauruses to drive. So I would show up in a Ford Taurus and they would show up in a Mercedes-Benz S550. And I thought, you're doing what you're doing better than I'm doing it.
Yeah, storage is expensive.
So we can all learn from others. And, this learning, I think, becomes really important as fast as trends are changing. All three of us know that there are going to be two trends that will greatly impact both our partners and vendors in the coming year. One is the applied use of AI in many different ways, and the other is the extreme growth of the hyperscaler marketplaces. And as I go through both of these waves of change with my current company, SmartSheet, we're going to make sure that we learn from each other. We're going to make sure that we work closely with our partners. I heard the other day from Canalys, now part of Omdia, that the cloud marketplaces are forecast to grow from $45 billion today to $163 billion by 2030 in 5 years.
Yeah.
So we'd better get this figured out, and we'd better make sure that our partners doing, private offers with the marketplace providers, that we all figure out how to do this together.
Yeah.
Amen.
Jay McBain's a friend of the show. He's been on the show, so we know where you're quoting from. He knows what he's talking about. But these hyperscaler marketplaces, they've really, in my job, have become more prevalent, and they're sometimes very complicated to traverse. Right. Example, company I'm working with now, we had a deal that went through Google Marketplace. And the private offer and the rules of engagement for that were very complicated. And our client just went to them and had it done through our partner, and we're still waiting to get paid on it. And I'm just curious, like, in your experience, have you had similar experiences where it just is so complicated to traverse if you're not really deep involved in that marketplace?
Yes, it is. It is more complicated. But here's my thinking on this. If I use AWS as an example, they're a great partner of ours. I've done both SPPO deals directly, and I've done CPPO deals with our reseller partners involved also, and we've figured out a way to get both of them done. What's important to me is that the partner reseller market is going to go from 37% of all marketplace transactions to 59% of all marketplace transactions in that next coming 5 years to 2030. And so we're trying to make sure that we're learning from our partners, and we're trying to make sure our partners are learning from us. I think there's ample room for a reseller, a hyperscaler, and a vendor to all be involved in the deal. You just got to do some advanced planning to make sure the deal goes down the way you expected to, so that you're not fighting with each other in week 12 and week 13 of the quarter.
No, absolutely. And what's interesting, one of the things that Jay brought up when we had him on, and the number's always been around 7. So there's roughly about 7 partners that will surround most clients. And he said it's kind of expanding to 9, which, everybody said, well, that's not a big number. It actually is a pretty big number when you think about it, but you've already got the clients are already kind of surrounded by different partners. So to your point, figuring out how that transaction goes down, that's always been a challenge. That was something I noticed. John will tell you, it's figuring out. When I was a channel manager, I picked up very early, like, I'm going to work with the guys working with the GSI, working with the MSPs, and just because there was a way to kind of put this, 4-dimensional puzzle together so that you could actually have deals that would go beyond what most people thought, would actually happen, if that makes sense. So,
yeah. Most things in life I find somehow tie back to how people are compensated. And so I've often thought if you take the time up front when you're building a pro forma financial plan for the coming year to figure out what you actually want to get done, and then secondly, figure out how you're going to pay people to be aligned with that,
Yep.
that's a pretty smart way of doing things, because I can try to go build a services strategy with some great system integrators. But if I don't have a comp plan that supports that with whoever I'm working for as a software vendor, then that's going to be kind of hard to implement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you got to do everything together, knowing what you want the outcome to be.
Yeah.
Amen.
So
Compensation drives habit.
true. Yeah, for sure. So Scott, one topic that is just never ending and burning on Jeff and I brain is the use of AI in our jobs. And I'm sure you have, over the past few years, seen how AI is taken over everywhere. But I'm just curious, what do you see in your role, in any of your roles with AI? Are you utilizing AI? Is it helping you? Is it hindering you? Because it's something that is, we just can't get away from it now.
Yeah, and it's also something only 3 years into this great trial that we're all learning together on, right? I mean, I think the number of monthly active users using generative AI in 2022 in January was 0.
Hmm.
And right now, we've grown to 2 billion monthly active users this year using generative AI. And so a whole lot of learning happens in those 3 years, and we're all still learning. So, we're going to be soon launching the next uh, wave of solutions powered by artificial intelligence at SmartSheet.
Hmm.
And we look forward to all of the sales enablement and technical enablement that will go into teaching our partners what we are doing that is powered by AI. Because powered by AI can be a marketing slogan,
Hmm.
or it can be actually how you're speeding up the way your customers use an intelligent work management platform like SmartSheet.
Hmm.
And our intelligent work management platform is already powered by AI. We're going to add a lot more capabilities to it so that our customers come up to speed faster. To me, the great promise for all of us is the speed with which your solutions can realize value for the customers that are buying those solutions.
Yeah.
And so when artificial intelligence helps you pre-populate, helps you make decisions that you weren't even sure you were ready to make yet,
Yep.
that's when it becomes really powerful.
Very true. Very true.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's good to hear, actually. And it will transition, because I do want to at some point talk about the book you wrote, but
Yeah.
what you just described, and again, I'm just going to kind of distill it for a second, but it's AI is, look, keep it simple, right? Make it easy for people to engage and access, and then also make it repeatable. And that's where what you just kind of walked through is, some of the, I'll say, John, what do you call it? The things people hate to do, or you had a term a couple of shows ago, but the things that are just, it's just the mundane things that you have to go get done. If there's ways to have the artificial intelligence start to be your agent, or your assistant, to help you get through some of those things faster, more efficiently, so that you can focus on the more important things, that's, I definitely see that as a value, right? And then you gotta weigh that, what's real versus the hype, because what you just said, everybody keeps saying, people throw AI onto their marketing sheet.
Well, and AI can mean different things
Yep.
in its different applied uses. One portion of our product portfolio is Brandfolder for managing digital images, and the advanced image recognition that we do using artificial intelligence is very powerful, but it's a very different applied use than what our customers are using AI for to pre-populate their workflow management solutions that we're selling them.
Jeff, does that remind you of Documentum a little bit? The image recognition.
Now you're showing your age.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
we were at Documentum. That was our EMC experience. We
Okay.
sold all that. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, you're so right. I mean, you can't just say it's powered by AI and not be real. You got to have it really working for you. And I'm seeing more and more I'm developing an application that's AI based, and it's it's not difficult to develop, but it's also, you got to be very careful how you develop it, right?
Right.
Like we see so many tools that are getting AI powered, like PRMs, for example. We've had a few, founder CEOs from PRM companies on, and we'll have one next week that's going to be coming on from MindMatrix. But it's, if you're not doing that in any of your products right now, and Jay McBain will confirm this, if you're not adding AI or have AI as a component of your platform, your product, you're going to be left behind, because that is a multi-trillion-dollar business that's laying ahead on the road. So it's really important that you have something that you can utilize.
You're you're absolutely right, John. I just spent 2 days with Jay, and he actually said that. So, I'll tell you though, guys, I'm very fortunate at SmartSheet that I've got some fantastic help in helping our partners address the major trends, the two that we just talked about, hyperscaler transition and artificial intelligence, to market. And they are my distribution or aggregator partners. In North America, we are doing great work with Climb Channel Solutions and across public sector with Carahsoft. And they do such a great job of training and enabling their partners in the things that are changing every single year for them.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that, because I know on our pre-call we talked about it, and like I was talking with a CEO of a startup company recently, and they were saying that two tiers is the only way they want to go to market. And I'm like, okay, I get that, because you get the ability to reach multiple hundreds of partners that could sell your product through a distribution partner like a TD Synnex or a Climb or any of the global ones, but for me, I think that might be a little overkill for a small company, because they're going to have trouble finding all those partners and getting through. And look, let's be honest, you got to pay to get to that point with those distribution partners if you're a small company. I tend to recommend going with just a reseller mode. Get involved, get really intimate and deep with a partner that's selling cybersecurity or selling in your vertical, and grow your business that way, and then introduce the two-tier, because it's important for expansion. But I'm just curious, what is your take on that approach?
Yeah, I agree with what you said, but here's my primary thought on this. You do different things at different points in time, and you do different things at different scale when you're going to market. I've long believed that gross margin dollars are what drives the economics of our business, not gross margin percentages. I sometimes hear a sales rep say to a partner, I'm giving you 17% on this deal. And the partner's like, yeah, of $40,000. Like, it's the gross margin dollars that matter, not the percentage.
That's right.
So I believe in the early stages of growth, a great strategy for software vendors is to work directly with a small set of resellers that they know, that they're intimately involved with. But as you scale your business and you bring in more different types of partners, and you want great regional partners, I may have a partner that is in their overall top line revenue, not really huge, but in the state of Colorado, they are very important. I have partners that are really important in my state, local, and education business, or that are really important with the U.S. federal government deals we're doing. In Canada, I have a very different set of partners that are operating really well in the Greater Toronto area from the ones that operate out west in BC and Alberta. So I think once your business gets bigger and with that scale, then you have to decide one of a couple of things. Am I going to employ a lot more people and bloat my SG&A to get this business prosecuted properly? Or am I going to turn to my distribution and aggregator partners and say, can you help me out here? And I'm going to pick off a set of partners, and I'm going to get really close to them myself. And I want you to help me with my selective recruitment and the second set of partners. I think that's a time-tested way that things work really well. But when I said it all comes back to the economics being driven by gross margin dollars, you got to decide, how much am I going to give this distributor partner to do everything I wish they would do for me, right? Am I going to give them, the small change, or am I going to give them all the business, or somewhere in between?
They don't want the small change. Look, we were doing the pre-show. We talked about this, and I think distribution has a place. I really do. I believe in it. I believe in it more outside the U.S. That's the way business is done anywhere else in the world. It's through distribution, and I think it's smart because they see the potential for growth faster. Whereas here in the U.S., I think businesses, vendors, and we kind of get back to the beginning of the show when you're talking about how to convince a company to go channel. I think traditionally everybody wants all the money they can grab from a deal, right? And when you have to go to a reseller, okay, that's 25 points or more or less, whatever you want to give them. Oh, the distribution, the disty tax, that's 3 to 7 to 11 points extra. And that really turns people off. So in the US, I think the mentality is stay away from distribution unless you're like really, really, really big and you need their help with logistics and with their reach and everything that they do that's really good. But I do feel like distribution has a real strong purpose in a sale with, cybersecurity or software vendor sale, and hardware even more, right?
See, I think it's actually, and not to cut you off there, I think it's evolved a little bit, right? And you're very big on PRM, and I've kind of come around quite a bit, and I see the value. I will say this, and if I, going back to a couple points that Scott just made here, so it is about the economics, and I think, and I'll throw the one distributor that I've worked with, Climb Channel Solutions. They used to be called Lifeboat. When I originally started working with them, they were called Lifeboat, and everything you said it's true, but there is this economic aspect, right? Economies of scale, and the ability to work with a distributor like them. And I think, you can back me up here, Scott. When you're able to work with them, it's not just about the tax. It is also about a cash flow thing that they bring to the table.
Yeah.
It also gives them one.
You paid earlier on deals. Yeah, I love that part of that. Yeah, I mean,
but there's the cash flow piece. There's one throat to choke. And I've seen some, they, and I know working with Climb in the past, like they also do like some of these like up and coming vendors, because they can actually help you grow and get economies of scale much faster and get you in front of more things. So, I mean, I'm just saying I think there's a lot of value there. I don't think it's all black and white, but I think it's shifting, to be honest with you. And I think, from the economies of scale and the economics, being able to drive cash flow, when you get that, you get the deal, you're done, so to speak.
You've said a couple of really important things here. Let me reinforce. I think the value that distribution or aggregation partners bring evolves every year. And those that evolve the best will continue doing the best in the future. You happen to mention Climb Channel Solutions, so I'll tell you that I know that Dale and Tim and Carlos run a great business there.
Yes,
I want to comment on your geographic reference. I've made sales calls in 43 countries. In my current job, I'm responsible for 36 countries in the Americas. And what I need from a distributor in Brazil and Mexico is quite different from what I need in a distributor in the US and Canada. But I still need different things in both areas. And I'm going to give you an example in the US where I still believe in this strongly, Jeff. Most software vendors will set aside 5% of their indirect revenues as either contra revenue or OPEX to drive demand generation for your future quarters. And you can either drive that with, your own marketing cost envelope and your own marketing employees, or you can move some of that money over to a distributor that just might do marketing events better than you do them. And if they do, I would rather get on board with them than to try to teach my organization how to do it just as well as they already do it today.
That's right.
That's true.
Yeah, no, that is great. Listen, we want to talk about your book. I know, because we're bumping up against time, but let's switch gears a little bit. And I love that distribution conversation. We have to have you on just to talk about that, because I think it's a whole topic that is we're having some people on from distribution to kind of give the lowdown for our audience. But let's talk about your book. And I know, Jeff, you had some questions. You wanted to reiterate some points of the book.
Well, so and I didn't read it per se. I did skim it. I cheated, Scott. I'm not gonna
472
lie.
pages.
I
cheated.
like your honesty, Jeff.
But well, and it's interesting because I kind of read through like some of the first stuff, and then I did a lot of skimming through it. But bottom line was I found it really interesting, right? And my first question is, what was the motivation behind writing the book? Like what drove you to want to do the book? I got a couple interesting things out of it. Like I said, we've talked about simplicity. We've talked about work ethic that jumped out. There were a couple really things that I think, hit home for me, but I wanted to first kind of, just have you kind of talk through like, what was the motivation? Why did you do it? And I just think those things become a generative kind of cathartic thing after you do it or as you're doing it. So I'd like to hear like how that has kind of shifted or changed some things for you. That was like a 4-part question. So.
I think I can hit them all.
Need AI to decipher them.
Some people enjoy writing and some people don't. I have always been a writer. I have also spent the last 25 years averaging 145 nights a year in a hotel bed traveling for work. And so one of the things I started doing some time ago, if anybody looks me up on LinkedIn, you'll see I have a newsletter called Leadership Matters. And usually at the end of the week on Sunday, I will sit down and write 1,000 words about whatever I experienced in the last week that I think might be a useful leadership lesson for others. Now to the book, it was a pandemic project. My wife and I got away for the pandemic when everybody was bubbling, and we took up a home in South Carolina, and I just sat down and started writing. And I didn't stop writing until I had about 500 pages written. And I was working with an editor, and I asked her about how many pages should a book like this have. And she said, roughly half of what you've already written. So I don't blame you for skimming it, because I refused to take out more than about 30 pages from the 500 before it got published.
Oh my God.
You know what that reminds me of? Billy Joel's song, The Entertainer, where he's talking about how he had to cut his song down and he really resented it.
Damn.
But the book came from two places. Number one, it is part, to be fair, memoir. I think I approach my jobs, however well or badly I approach them today, as a result of my child work ethic. I had 11 different jobs from the age of 9 to 18, and some of them were damn hard work. And if anybody listening to this has ever, at 3 a.m. in the morning in a restaurant cleaned out the grease trap at the end of the night, that will teach you to want to go work really hard and do something else for a living. And I thought back to those childhood jobs and how they informed the way I approach my work today. And I've always thought, I may never be the smartest person in a room, but I bet I will always be the hardest working person in a room. And so I wrote down some thoughts that I had about that. And then I started writing about different aspects of leadership and leading direct sales teams and partner sales teams. I've roughly split my 35 years of sales leadership almost in half leading direct sales teams and half leading partner sales organizations. And I actually think doing both informs how you do both of them even better. Yeah. I think I'm better with partners because I've run a direct sales force, and I think I was better at selling when I knew how to utilize partners and what they wanted out of the deal. So all of that somehow ends up in the 472 pages that made that book simple but hard.
That's great. Yeah, and Jeff and I have similar backgrounds. We were both for sales and then channel. We weren't born into channel, and I think that's a different kind of a personality. I think they don't have that same work ethic that you talk about, because sales, you got to grind to get the deal done. And channel, it's sales. I always tell my channel reps that work for me, I'm like, you're in sales. You've got a quota and you are selling. And I don't think the people that get started and do channel and think it's, as Jeff and I say, that go to the chug and hugs and, slap backs and drink beers and network. That's not the whole job, right?
It is certainly not the whole job, and I'm laughing as you say that, John, because I have told every partner organization I have ever led, and it's been 5 of them. I've told them 2 things when I got started with them. Number 1, I want no pictures posted on LinkedIn of you on a golf course. Number 2, I want no pictures posted on LinkedIn of you at a big table with lots of glasses of wine and big steaks on the table, because that's going to make you look like a party planner, not like a sales rep.
Yeah. I
Oh
agree.
man.
I agree.
Man. Man. Okay. Did we just become best friends, Scott? Did we? Did that just happen?
We've got to get him the Chug and Huck T-shirt when it comes out.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because John and I have talked about it, and without no disrespect to people we work with in the industry, I get it, but it was curtailed a lot during COVID. But man, I feel like it's back. Like, no offense, I don't really care that you're at a restaurant in New York. I don't really care that you're on a golf course. Say, hey, look at me. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. Like, I get it. It is part of the job. Those things are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But it does kind of send a weird message. And I think to your point, John, and when he was saying like the grease trap, I almost fell off my chair. When I hear people, and I'm going to get the hate mail, John, it's going to happen. When people, they bitch about how hard it is. I'm like, you don't know what hard work is. Go try, do asphalt in the middle of the summer at a summer job, where you're tamping asphalt in the middle of the street. Go clean out a grease trap at 3:00 in the morning, because that's the job. Like, and you do those things because that's what you had to do.
Jeff, no matter what kind of mail you get, hard is a relative term. I was very fortunate young in my professional career to work directly for a sales manager who had been a helicopter pilot in the Vietnam War.
Wow.
And at the end of a quarter, when everybody in the room was screaming at each other, he pulled me aside and he said, Scotty, these people don't know what hard is. Hard is when you're coming down and the dust is kicking up so bad that you can't see the ground and your instrumentation goes out. He goes, that's hard. Finishing week 12 and 13 is not hard. It's just a bunch of unplanned crises.
It's just making them uncomfortable, right? And I think a lot of the generations that are out there now working that are younger than us, I think they don't like to be uncomfortable. They like things handed to them instantly.
Yeah.
And like my parents were both, my dad was of the greatest generation. My mom was just short of that. And like, they instilled a work ethic in me, and I instilled that in my kids. And I think we don't see that. And that's what we see.
I think it's still good for everybody, John. My children are adults now. And one of the most flattering things one of them ever said to me was, thank you for making me wash dishes when I was 16, because it made me really want to do something else.
Damn.
Jeff and I we both have adult children that are working and doing well. And like, I hear people that are like, oh, my son still hasn't had a job. He's been out of college for 5 years. He's sleeping on my couch. And I'm like, no. But that's a whole topic for another show.
Everybody finds their own path, but I'll leave that for a different podcast.
Amen. Well, and I'll just come back. So one of the things that I did kind of pull out of your book as well was, and I think it's apropos because of what's going on in the industry. We talked about distributors, talk about AI, is that transformation is inevitable, and it's happening all the time, right? And you're seeing the shifts, and transformations always happen, but I do think it's accelerated. And I bring it up all the time, and I don't think people realize how fast some of the things are happening, right? In fact, I do want to digress at one point, because I made the note, because I'm going to give a shout out to Mike Kahn. So when we had our pre-call, we were talking at the same time, a gentleman that I had the pleasure of working with while I was at EMC, basically is now one of your counterparts or peers for EMEA. Is that correct, Mike?
That is correct. And I'm so glad you mentioned Mike's name. And since you mentioned his name, let me just tell you, I am really, really fortunate where I am today to be working with 4 great leaders in this industry. Ava Schoenleitner hired me to come in to this role, and she runs our global partner organization. And Franco Flori runs Asia Pacific. Mike runs EMEA, and Rachel Travis builds our partner programs and strategy and operations for us. And
That's
I'm
important.
learning so much from all of them, but you are right. Mike's a great guy.
It's always great working with good people like that. It just makes your job better, right?
Yep.
Well, where I was going with that is it's the whole serendipitous thing. Like you just don't know who you're going to talk to and who they're going to know and how things are going to connect at some point. So, him and I reconnected. We're kind of going back and forth. We were chatting through LinkedIn and everything. And no, I just think, look, it is a small world. I think you've got an incredible opportunity in front of you. And to John's point, if people get a chance, go, don't do what I did, but get the book. Simple but hard. And there's a lot of interesting things that jumped out. Like I said, the transformational stuff. I'm a big simplicity guy. Keep it simple and keep it simple, keep it easy, make it repeatable. And
you just referenced, Jeff, one thing that I remember calling out in the book. I tell people in this industry all the time that the technology sector is a small world, and the world of partners within the technology sector is an even smaller world. Yeah. I recently at a different employer witnessed a young in their career sales rep chewing out a partner sales professional that they were working together with on a deal. And I pulled him aside. It was a him. I pulled him aside and I said, over the course of your hopefully long, hopefully successful career, you're going to run into that person again, and they will never forget how you just treated them.
Wow.
They're like elephants. They remember. I try to tell, I coach my people the same way. Like you got to treat people the way you want to be treated. Right. And things happen, deals fall apart, and it could be any number of things, but you've got to stay level headed and move on to the next, have it, like Ted Lasso said, have a memory like a goldfish. Right?
Words of wisdom from Ted Lasso. Thank you for that, John.
So, John, so Scott, we're at time now, but why don't you let the audience know where you could get or they could get the book, Simple but Hard.
You can find Simple but Hard on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Apple Books.
Excellent.
Apple Books.
Excellent. And it's only 472 pages. It's got cut it down by like 28 pages.
It's a brisk 472 pages. I was gonna do an Audible version of it, but they said you're gonna have to sit down and read for 9 hours, and I said I don't have 9 hours.
Well, first of all, it was really great having you on. Would love to have you on again at some point. I just, like I said, the fact that we had the conversation, I saw the connection with Mike. I'm super excited for you and your new role. I will take the opportunity to read through it. One of the things I found myself doing now since we started the podcast is I've been reading more books than I've ever read. Just because I'm going to not say more open to it, but it's just, there's so much information, and it's not just the information, it's perspective. Like your perspective is, I saw some things in there and I was like, this is really interesting because it's real. So thank you again.
The highest selling author of all time, James Patterson, was once quoted as saying, children should read like their lives depend on it, because they do.
I love reading. I don't know what, my kids hate it. They don't read books anymore. The youth today, they don't like reading books. I love it. It's like an adventure.
Guys, I've really appreciated our conversation today, and I will join you anytime you ever.
We're going to have you back because you were a great guest, and you're a friend of the show and friend of Jeff and I, and we really appreciate your time. So Jeff, with that, we'll be signing off. But audience, you can reach us on any of the podcasting services that are out there. We have a website, www.channelsurfers.com. We also have a LinkedIn page where we post every show on Tuesday. So you could get information about Scott's book there. We'll post a link to the Amazon page where your book is being sold, Scott, so people can get access to it quickly. And we also have email that you could reach out to us. And please reach out to us if you have questions. I'm John at channelsurfers.com, and Jeff is Jeff at channelsurfers.
And I'm Jeff.
But with that, Scott, thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation.
Thank you, man.
We would love to have you back to talk about distribution or more AI or something, but you'll definitely be returning.
Yeah, thank you very much, man.
Jeff, as always, great co-hosting with you, and thanks for being here. All right, guys.
You got it. Take care, everybody.